Recording. All right, so we are recording. We're 1 minute past 11. I'll just go ahead and do the introduction, give some more people time to get on.
Okay.
So for everybody that's here and everybody that's going to watch later, my name is Allison and I'm a therapist at Turning Point. I want to welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, please type them in the question and answer section, and then we will get to them at the end as time permits. Before I turn it over to Lisa, I want to remind everybody that Turning Point is a 501(c) nonprofit that depends on community support. And here we have some of our socially responsible partners on this slide here. They help make these events possible without charge, and we are very grateful to them. So we can go ahead and begin. I will hand it over to Lisa.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Allison. All right. So today, our topic is, how to combat fatigue with food. And it's just not food. There's a couple other things that we're going to hit on that a lot of people don't realize, possibly don't realize. So we'll start with that. I know fatigue is one of those side effects from treatment that we don't have a pill for. We can't say, here, take this pill if you're fatigued and tomorrow you'll feel better. We've got a pill for nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, everything except the fatigue. So there's a lot of things that happen in the fatigue realm of your treatment. So we're just going to go over what causes fatigue and how can we kind of help combat it with what we're doing with our food. So we'll start. First of all, the definition of what fatigue is. It's really a condition. This definition, a condition characterized by a lessened capacity for work and reduced efficiency of accomplishment, usually accompanied by feeling weariness and tiredness. Okay, fatigue. You have fatigue, and then you have what we call is truly a word is called cancer fatigue, and this occurs during cancer treatment. Okay, this can result from the side effects of your treatment. It can result from the cancer itself. This cancer fatigue may feel like it's a persistent physical, it's emotional, it's mentally exhausting. Fatigue is different than feeling tired, okay? Like as if you're not getting enough rest, it's different. And for those of you on the call, if you have experienced this or are experiencing it now, hopefully we'll get some resolution for you, but it is a different type. I've not experienced chemo or cancer fatigue firsthand, but a lot of my patients, this is what they describe to me, and this is what they explain it, how they explain it. So, and fatigue generally will interfere a lot, especially the cancer fatigue will interfere with daily life. Does not match your activity level generally, or how you used to be. In fatigue, cancer fatigue, it doesn't like go away, meaning completely go away after we lay down and rest, like other fatigue will. If you work too hard in the yard, getting your flower garden ready and are fatigued and tired, when you lay down, generally you're recouping, you bounce back. This type of fatigue, it doesn't happen that easily and that nice and neat in a package. So that's what cancer fatigue. It's a true word, and is a true feeling, and it is a true side effect from your treatment. Okay. So what causes fatigue? One, your cancer, okay? Any type of cancer can cause you to be more tired or more fatigued. Sometimes patients will present with that fatigue as being one of their initial cues or how they get diagnosed. They go to the doctor and they're like, I don't understand, I'm just so tired, I'm fatigued all the time, I'm this and this, I'm eating right, but I'm just, so that could be one of those, a side effect of that cancer, and we just can't kind of pinpoint, because in general, if we go to the doctor and we say we're tired, there's a whole bunch of different labs that we draw. We don't think of cancer immediately, but that can be one of them. That can be one of the reasons why that contributes to your fatigue is your cancer period. Your treatment, chemotherapy and / radiation are going to cause fatigue. This happens, our cancer treatment, Chemotherapy, we have different types of chemotherapy, but in radiation, they target those cells, they target the cancer cells to get rid of them and to kill them. And unfortunately, that there's damage to our healthy cells at the same time. So our body has to work extra hard to maintain kind of normalcy, as we will say. So our energy level, our body is becoming more hypermetabolic, meaning it is working extra hard just to maintain itself. So that can contribute to the fatigue. That is a huge chunk of what the contribution of fatigue is from your treatment. Anemia. Anemia is one that we don't have enough iron in our diet or in our body. Red blood cells, we have less red blood cells, which red blood cells help to distribute oxygen. If we don't have enough oxygen, we feel lethargic and tired. Pain can cause fatigue. Pain, we don't sleep. We're not sleeping with pain. Sometimes we're not eating. If we're not eating, we're not getting the fuel to move around. So that will help. That will contribute. Pain, obviously I said if you're in pain, you're not sleeping. So lack of sleep is going to cause your fatigue to be even worse. We go down the emotions. Anytime, with initial diagnosis, the emotions are high. The emotion of the unknown, the emotion, we're scared. That fatigues us, and we don't even sometimes really realize it. It is a true anxiety. So that can contribute, and that is in the added bucket. When we're undergoing treatment, and if we have the anxiety and the worry of the first treatment, but then we always, with each treatment, seem to have, if we had a bad experience the first time, we tend to, worry about that with each treatment. So our emotions, our stress play a lot with how much fatigue that we have. And with those emotions and the anxiety, we sometimes will have a lack of sleep, again, contributes. Poor nutrition, which we're going to talk about that momentarily. Medications can, and believe it or not, lack of exercise. And with this one's interesting. We'll touch on this one in a little bit, but a lack of exercise, especially for those that most people are pretty active or, move around out there, grocery shopping, doing everything, maintaining the house. And then, with treatment or with surgeries, that kind of gets put on the back burner. And that lack of movement actually can increase fatigue. And then we have the hormone changes that will affect all of it. So those are things that can affect the fatigue or cause fatigue to be worse. Okay, how do we manage this cancer fatigue? Okay, I said earlier, we need to listen to our bodies. Our bodies are the boss at this point. When we feel tired, we need to rest. And I know I said earlier, like, rest does not make it go away. It does not make it go away. But when your body is telling you that you need to rest, we need to rest. It's different. Like I said, it's different than pushing yourself, saying I can plant one more flower bed and then I'll be done. We need to listen to our bodies, and we need to rest, because there's a lot going on with the type of treatment that you have or undergoing. We try to spread the activities throughout the day rather than burning it all in the morning. I have a lot of patients that say, have the most energy in the morning, and that's because we're rested through the night. And they try to get everything done, first thing in the morning, and then they kind of burn the candle at both ends, and then they're exhausted for the rest of the day. So small little things throughout the day, activity wise, is generally recommended. Here is hard. Sometimes it's hard for a lot of people to do this, is that we have to ask, our family and our friends with small little favors. We get our family or friends asking all the time, how can I help? What can I do for you? What can I do to make it easier for you or better for you? And we have to tell them, if they're asking what they can do, we need to give them clues, and we need to give them, tasks, because they want to help. So it could be as little as shopping. You can do online shopping now. They can go pick up the groceries. People can help put them away. Housework, driving. People can take it to and from treatment. The little driving is very exhausting. It can be very exhausting, especially if you've been in treatment all day, or even if it's 15 minutes of radiation. That radiation is very very taxing. So when people ask, go ahead and delegate some tasks to make things easier for you. So it's not forever, it's just during this time. And like I said, if people want to help, take them up on it. Doing some regular exercises like walking. The research has shown that with fatigue can be lessened if we are more physically active. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, as you know, if we're tired, we don't want to go out there. And I'm not saying to go to go to boot camp or go run a marathon, but like a moderate intensity, just walking outside can boost those energy levels. We do have to think and play that in, figure out in the day when we can do that. And they don't have to be for long bouts, long periods of time. It could be, 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there, or, just maybe walk once around the block, and you can do that a couple times throughout the day. But exercise is good. Again, it's not high intensity. Walking, that's going to get your blood pumping. That's going to just get your brain cleared. That is helpful as well. So actually trying to fit some type of physical activity in the day is recommended. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, eating a well-balanced, and we don't want you to skip meals. Okay. And during this period of time, whether it be, maybe some people just have to have surgery, and some people have surgery chemo, or some people just have chemo or radiation. So all of those are important to fuel. We need to fuel our bodies appropriately during that time. Anytime we have surgery, anytime there's cancer treatment involved, our nutritional needs increase. Okay, so I think that's the next one. All right, so if we're fueling appropriately, nutritional needs do change. Our body, I had mentioned before, even with surgery, if it's surgery, a lumpectomy, a mastectomy, any type of surgery, any type of invasion into our body is going to need more calories and more protein. Protein is important to help our bodies rebuild tissues and cells. So if we know what's happening during this whole time, if we first of all have surgery, if we have a mastectomy, we understand how intense that surgery is. And our body needs to repair itself. So at that time, our body requires generally, on a given day, about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And we'll talk about that later. I'll slow that down a little bit. But so during or after treatment, those needs increase to about 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein. So it requires more. But the tricky thing is, at this time, we don't really feel like eating. After surgery, we're sore, we're in a lot of pain. We don't feel like it. Chemotherapy, the different chemotherapies out there, there can be taste changes, there can be nausea, there can be vomiting, there can be constipation or diarrhea that kind of not want us to really sit down and partake in a meal. So it's more challenging during this time, but it's more crucial just to get these nutrients in. Okay. So a meal should consist of, a perfect meal, or a well-balanced. We're talking about that. In a perfect world, we should have protein, we should have carbohydrates, and we should have fats, healthy fats. So what is protein? We're going to cover that in a little bit in a minute. Our carbohydrates are important, but let's just explain that. Carbohydrates are important because they fuel our body. They give us our energy, which is glucose, and it is important. It's huge important right now. 45 to 65% of our diet should come from a carbohydrate source. So carbohydrates in our diet come from the given, our bread, our rice, our pasta, that's carbohydrate. Then it comes from fruit. Fruit provides us with carbohydrates as well. And then we have our vegetables provide us with a little, and then our fruit provides us with pretty much. So we've got a lot of things that will provide us with that energy. And so carbohydrates are important. It's interesting, with nausea, if we have nausea post-treatment, carbohydrates tend to help alleviate that nausea. Even the plain salty carbs, like a saltine cracker, where some people are like, that's just so refined, and but tends to help calm the stomach down. So carbohydrates are important to fuel. And then I have fat. Fat is in the mix as well. And we're really wanting you to do more of a monounsaturated instead of a saturated fat. Saturated fats are your butters and your margarines and your full fat ice creams and full fat dairy. The fats are important because fat helps keeps us satisfied in a diet. So in a meal, we have our protein to help rebuild, our carbohydrates to give us energy, and the fat helps blend all that to keep us satisfied a little bit longer. Okay. Fats are great to help increase our calories, and especially during this time when our calorie needs are increased, but our appetite has decreased. Healthy fats are a great way to add more. So healthy fats in the form of, I usually say, well, like nuts and nut butters are great form of healthy fats. And then they give you that added benefit of extra protein, and they also give you a little bit of iron, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. During this time, anytime, it's best really to eat 5 to 6 small mini meals, rather than trying to stomach or muster 3 large meals. And especially those that are undergoing chemotherapy, the effects of the chemotherapy tends to focus more on that realm of everything. Especially if we're not eating enough, if we're maybe losing weight during this time, it is important, because if we have 5 or 6 small mini meals and able to accomplish and eat them, at the end of the day, we'll hit those protein needs, and we'll hit those those target needs. So fueling frequently, and even on those days, if we're having post treatment days and food does not sound good, it's better to get some type of food in. Okay. I know a lot, like we have 3 days. Sometimes people have 3 days post-treatment that they're just not feeling it. But letting our stomach or not fueling at all is going to contribute to worsen the fatigue down the line. So we have to fuel appropriately. So with that being said, there's just like a couple little things, like when we're fueling, what kind of tricks can we do? So the first one is that we want to cut back on the added sugars. And the reason for this, I've talked about added sugars, and we've done the Mythbusters with that before, but the sugar will give us that false sense of energy. Okay, sugar is like what we have here, those donuts and the candy, will raise those blood sugar levels, will raise your fuel. Okay, that's your glucose. It raises those levels up, and it makes you feel like, wow, you're full, but at the same time, or not full, but you have that energy. At the same time, then your body is spilling out the insulin to take care of that extra glucose. And then we can sometimes have a rebound, which is kind of like a reactive hypoglycemia type of effect. So you can actually, you feel like you have this energy, and then all of a sudden you plummet, and sometimes you feel worse than if prior to eating the sugar. Okay, so just be really mindful of that. Sugar, if you're like, I'm craving something sweet, I usually recommend, if you're doing that, and that's fine, but you should have it following your meal, following the meal that has your protein and your carbohydrates and your fat, because then you have that balance within your system, and you're just not throwing direct glucose or direct sugar into an empty bucket. It's, and then raising those blood sugars. So if we have a meal in our stomachs, even a small meal, and you want something a little bit sweet, that is how we go about managing that false sense of a huge energy and then bringing it back down. So just be mindful of what we're putting in, and what time we're putting, and what time we're actually eating it. Okay. This is a big one. A lot of the times, post surgery, chemotherapy, our iron levels go down, or anemia can sit in. So our body needs iron to make those red blood cells. We carry oxygen, and the red blood cells carry the oxygen throughout the body, and that helps give the energy. And if you're short on iron, even in your diet or obviously in your body, that is anemia, and that is equal to tiredness. So A lot of fatigue, a lot of the times that's what can contribute, because that can be the effect of one surgery. Okay, with surgery, we lose some blood, the anemia can set in from that. And then with the chemotherapy. Radiation, so much, you don't really, anemia does not set in with this, but we should still be being mindful of making sure that we're getting enough iron in our diet. Increased consumption of iron, iron rich foods, and while focusing incorporating some vitamin C sources. So let's hit that. So a lot of times, I keep saying, I feel I said this enough, but during the course of our treatment, a lot of patients will have an aversion to meat, to red meats in particularly, and those are all our protein sources have a good source. They're a good source of iron. So chicken, beef, pork, lamb, venison, veal, all of those are a good source of iron. Okay, you have two types of iron. You have a heme iron, which is found in your animal products, and then you have a non-heme iron that is found mostly in your non-animal products. So your vegetables or your fruits, that type of stuff. So this slide, I want to focus on those things. We know right in the middle. I mean, and I know it's not the most attractive picture, but liver, I mean, that was a big thing. I just remember back in the day when I was little, they thought my iron was low, my mom would make liver for all of us. And I don't know if liver is a big deal now as it seems back then, but liver is a very good source of iron. Anyway, I have red meats here, but any meat will provide you with some iron. So outside of that, and especially for those that want to eat more of a plant-based diet, lentils are an excellent source. All gamuts of the lentil. There's all pretty lentils, even these lentils, but also legumes. I didn't put them on here, but lentils / legumes. So we have our lentils, we have our all the different colored lentils here, but we also have, black beans, black-eyed peas, lima beans, kidney beans, cannelli beans, all those different types of beans will give you the iron and the added benefit of protein. And that's what we're going to hit on in a little bit. Okay. Spinach is very good. Spinach is both the iron and it gives you some vitamin C. And because vitamin C, all right, let's go back. So vitamin C will help your body absorb more iron. Okay, so at a meal, we want you to consume an iron source and we want you to consume a vitamin C source. So we have spinach, which is the best of I want to say the best of both worlds. Spinach does give you some vitamin C and spinach will give you some of that iron. At a meal that you have spinach, I don't want you just to use that as just with your vitamin C, and we'll talk about how we incorporate other sources of vitamin C in with that. But spinach is a good source of iron. Whether it be raw, it can be sauteed, it can be frozen, it can be any of that. It just still provides the same amount of iron. Iron does not decrease nutritionally, or the value of the iron does not decrease with cooking. Soybeans are good. Tofu is another good one. So with that being said, you can do tofu. Edamame is on there the same, and that's also a good source of protein. Other things like those ancient grains, I have one on here. I have quinoa. That is a good source. Quinoa is that grain that is all encompassing. I like it because it does have some iron. I like it because it is a complete protein. It's plant-based, obviously, and it gives you good fiber, and it gives you a lot of good carbohydrates. So it's a really good, I don't like to call it a superfood, but it is very high nutritionally, has a really good nutritional profile. So quinoa, you have farro, you have kamut, you have all those different types of ancient grains that will give you also the iron and those good carbs and a little bit of the protein. We have fortified cereals. So this is almost all cereals are fortified with iron, and that goes way back in the day when cereals were out there and for kids, and kids need more iron. But pretty much all cereals can be fortified. I'll have my patients go into the baby food aisle, and their little rice cereal is fortified. It is fortified with iron. So, and that's real very calming on the stomach. A rice cereal, if we're having an upset stomach, it is very calm. It's not high in fiber, so it's not going to upset upset the stomach anymore. So it's real neutral. So sometimes, you know, the baby food, the rice cereal does work. And then we have pumpkin seeds. So we have pumpkin seeds, you know, chia seeds, flax seeds, all those, the seeds will fit into, they do all give us some iron, but pumpkin seeds are on the higher end with all these seeds. So pumpkin seeds can be added to soups. They can be added to salads. You know, you can just munch on them ad lib, but as we're eating these iron-rich foods, if we put these at our mealtime, we are going to focus on, and here our vitamin C source. Most vitamin C comes from our fruits. If we look at this, you know, this is the time of year when we take advantage of all the fresh fruit that's coming into play. I love watermelon. Watermelon is one that people think it's kind of just water, it's nutritionally void, but it's huge. It has a great amount of vitamin C, but it has the lycopene in it. It's great. So at a meal, when we are having any source of protein, iron, which is the source of protein sometimes, try to incorporate something with the vitamin C. These are all the fruits. Vegetables do, like broccoli does have some vitamin C, like I mentioned, the spinach does. There's some vitamin C in cauliflower. There's a little bit of vitamin C. These are some of the heavy hitters. It's coming, you know, we've got kiwi, it's melon season coming around the corner, and we know all of our oranges, lemons, limes, that kind of stuff. And you can do as simple as, you know, at mealtime, if you're not really wanting to munch and crunch on these things, you can make lemon water or drink a diluted orange juice would be perfect and fine to do that. So one thing with iron, just make sure that when things that will block iron absorption, coffee and tea. So it's recommended that we don't drink coffee or tea, or really tea. Tea within an hour before and after a meal that contains iron, because it can block some of it. It doesn't block all of it, but it can block some of it. So tea at mealtime is a no-no if we're anemic or if we're having low iron. A really high fiber diet at that time, but you know, it's a lot of fiber, so that can block it. And then if we're taking any kind of a calcium supplement, we should not take a calcium supplement like that with a meal that's high in iron, because calcium can block the iron absorption. So if you're taking a multivitamin that has calcium in it, or you're taking a calcium supplement and then you're taking a multi that has iron, we don't take those together, because they can, the calcium will actually block some of the iron that is in that multivitamin. So those are just some of the tricks, you know, that we do. Coffee, they did not say as far as how much time has to elapse with that. Hold on one second, please. I'm sorry, I'm at home, you guys, and somebody's ringing my doorbell. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
While we're waiting on Lisa, I just want to remind anybody or everybody, if you have any questions, just put them in the question and answer box, and we will get to them at the end.
Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, so vitamin C source. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's live. Okay, so we're back to the vitamin C. All right. So next thing up is our dehydration, or making sure that we hydrate. This is a hard one to accomplish as well, because when we're tired, we don't really feel like drinking enough water. So the dehydration can leave you feeling tired and sluggish. So I recommend, sipping throughout the day. Your body, what I tell people just to kind of aim for is if we take our weight and we divide it by 2. So if you're, let's say you're 130 pounds, divide that by 2, that's about 65 ounces. And that's how many ounces that you would need in a day. So preferably we drink unsweetened beverages because we talked about what the sugar does on an empty stomach that can raise up your all sense of energy. So we cut that out, preferably undecaffeinated, because caffeine, we're going to hit that in a minute. Caffeine is a natural diuretic. So unsweetened, uncaffeinated beverages. After dehydration, dehydration, what they say is we, by the time when we feel thirsty, dehydration is already set in. So the best thing to do really is to calculate about how many ounces of fluid that you need in a day. And I usually recommend, drinking like in the morning, if you're getting ready, trying to get in maybe, a quarter of that amount or half of that amount. If you're in the bathroom, you can drink two 8-ounce glasses or maybe even 4 cups of water or fluid as you're getting ready. That's going to ease the pain throughout the day of trying to get those fluids in. The fluid needs after chemotherapy, and you talk to your nurse, but they generally, the post chemo, they want you to really hyper flush. They might tell you to take in 1 gallon. They might say, 2 gallons. It all depends, so many liters. So just make sure that you listen to what their recommendations are, because we want to keep our kidneys flushed, especially after that chemotherapy. So on the sense of hydration, it can take your body about 1 or 2 days just to balance back out. So if we don't get there, that would even be better. We won't have to backtrack and get 1 or 2 days. All right. So the caffeine is what we just mentioned earlier. We're going to limit the caffeinated drinks if at all possible, for a couple reasons. One, I had mentioned earlier that caffeine is a natural diuretic. So if we're not drinking enough and we're drinking too much caffeine, we can actually become in the negative. We can become dehydrated by doing that. And what they say with the caffeine or caffeinated beverage, it takes 1.5 times that beverage to equal 8 ounces of water. So if, for example, it would take 12 ounces of coffee to equal 8 ounces of water. That's how we kind of balance that out. So the fluid, it would just be 1.5 times if you're drinking everything with caffeine, but it's not recommended, because what the caffeine does too, as we know, caffeine gives you that boost of energy, or a sense of boost of energy. When we're tired, we generally will drink a cup of coffee, and that gives you, that sense of energy. But also that coffee, a lot of times when taken on an empty stomach, can give you the jitters. That can make you, shaky. And also it can, cause you not to sleep at night. And both of those things are what we just talked about earlier, like the lack of sleep can contribute to the higher levels of fatigue. So let's be mindful of the beverages that we do take in, especially, if they are containing caffeine. It's really best to have a non-caffeinated, non-carbonated beverage as counting as your fluid. We don't want them sweetened because of that, the extra sugar. There are extra calories as well, and if we're watching that, so we need to just be mindful. But things like other things that fit in there, chicken broth, soups, that kind of stuff does fit in the hydration realm of everything. Because if you're in the hospital, we count everything if we're counting your fluid intake. So it just doesn't necessarily have to be water, plain straight up water. All right. So protein is a big thing that a lot of patients are not getting enough in, okay, as they are undergoing any type of treatment or even post-surgery. So protein, as I mentioned earlier, protein is job is to rebuild tissues and cells, okay? And so we have to make sure that we're getting enough protein in. We know, I had mentioned earlier, you need extra calories and you need extra protein. And, we weigh you, we'll know if you're not getting enough calories in. The scale will continue to go down. Radiation, we don't know. Like during radiation, we don't know. We don't run labs there. In medical oncology, your oncologist, they will run labs and they'll be able to tell if your protein stores are low. But so we need to make sure that we hit that number or get more in on a daily basis. So what does that entail? Like I said, I would like you to have protein with each of your meals. Protein comes in the source. There are all these sources out here. So protein comes in our meat group. So we have chicken, fish. We do have the beef, pork, lamb, venison, veal. We have all of those things that fit into the category of that meat group, of the protein group. Hold on one second. Okay, so we have that. Then we have things like I had mentioned earlier in the iron category. So this is a double benefit. Our legumes. So we have black eyed peas here. We have the soybeans that are listed. Those are great sources of protein / iron. And then we have eggs. Eggs are a great concentrated form of protein. One egg, and all the protein is in the white. Egg has, about 6 grams of protein, very relatively lower in calories. So it's a great way to get that protein in. I tell people to, hard boil some eggs, keep them in the refrigerator. That with a little bit of salt on them, that salty protein sometimes will help if we're not feeling, like we want to eat a big meal, or if we're feeling a little bit nauseous. Other things like your yogurt, Greek yogurt is going to have more protein per serving than your regular yogurt does. It is a different texture. It's a different taste. It's, and if you don't like it, regular yogurt is fine, but a Greek yogurt can have up to 22 grams of protein per serving. So it's a powerhouse. And then we have other things like, our dairy milk. So I have a picture of Fairlife milk here. Fairlife milk is it has 13 grams of protein per serving, whereas just regular milk has about 8. So the reason I like the Fairlife is because it has 5 extra grams of protein per serving. So that is a good thing. If you wanted to drink a glass of milk with each of your meals, that would be perfect and fine. Because that's going to give you that extra 13 grams of protein. And then we have other things like the hemp hearts, I have a picture of that on the bottom. Hemp hearts are great. I didn't put quinoa on here, but quinoa is a protein source. So the only things really in our diet that is not providing us with protein is a fruit group and your fat group. So everything else is gonna give you enough some protein. Even our vegetables have a low amount of protein, but they still give you maybe 2 grams of protein per serving, which isn't bad at all. But these are just more of the heavy hitters on this page. So your protein needs. I didn't write a slide. I didn't have a slide here that I didn't write this down. So how much protein do you need? I had mentioned earlier, you need about 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So in order to find kilograms of body weight, you take your weight. So say you're 130, you divide that by 2.2, and that gives you how many kilograms. So 130-pound female is 59 kilograms. And then that 59 is really like the rock bottom. If we're undergoing any type of treatment or post-surgery, that's the rock bottom number that you would need. That's 59 grams of protein. But if you're undergoing treatment, then we multiply that by the 1.2, which is about 71 grams of protein. So, and I can help anybody with this, but that's roughly about how much you need. So if we look at these products here, like I mentioned the milk. That Fairlife milk gives you 13 grams of protein per cup. All your meat, so your chicken and your beef and your pork and your lamb and venison, they per cooked ounce, they have about 7 grams of protein per 1 cooked ounce. Okay, so whether any of those proteins. So they give or take a little bit. So, 3-ounce hamburger patty or 3-ounce turkey burger or 3-ounce chicken breast or 3-ounce piece of salmon, we clump all together and say that has about 21 grams of protein when we're trying to calculate that just at mealtime. All your legumes and your lentils and stuff that they can vary. They can have 9, they can have up to 13 grams of protein. So it's best just to look those up or to look on the bag. I mentioned your Greek yogurt, cheese. 1 ounce of cheese has roughly about the 8 grams of protein as well. And then I did mention the eggs, and the eggs have about 6 in a large egg. So at mealtime, we can get a good chunk. So say this female that's 130 pounds and needs 70 grams of protein. If we're gonna do 5 meals a day, 5 small little mini meals, that's 14 grams of protein. So that would equate to, a little bit over 2 ounces. That could be, a glass of milk. That could be a nutritional supplement. That could be, 3 egg whites or 2 egg whites. That's 12 on a piece of toast. And there you go. That's 14. So they don't have to be, eating a whole side of beef or a half of a pig. It can pull in. So even like at a mealtime. So let's go to the next one. We just want you to get a balance. Okay. These are just balance. They're just, there's fruits or vegetables, there's protein, there's carbohydrates. They're all present in all these different capacities. The color is there, and we always want you to get enough color. But with this being said, I mean, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but like if we're undergoing treatment, especially with the chemotherapy, and smells change and taste change, when we ask people to make us, or if we have extra food, I always say to package it in small containers and then be able to freeze it. Smaller containers frozen, and you can just pull it out when you want and just, microwave that, and then and there you have it. So smaller meals, but basically we want you to get a variety of everything in here. Okay. And I believe that is the last one to really, that's the last slide. Yeah. So I think we're going to open it to questions. I'm sorry I had to run. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
So far, I don't see any questions, but I had a patient last week. She was telling me that the only thing that tastes good to her right now, and she's on Ibrance, the only thing that tastes good to her right now is chocolate. And she's not eating anything else, losing a bunch of weight. But she can sit down, she said, and eat some chocolate, and that's the only thing that tastes good. So how would you say for her to get?
Oh, well, with that, honestly, if it's just chocolate that she's liking, I would venture to like a nutritional supplement that has that's chocolate flavored. I know that sounds like not really like the best solution, but we need to get something in. Is this my question would be, are you just wanting that post-treatment, like those 3 days or 4 days when we're not feeling the best post-treatment, or is it like for the whole entire duration of, is she between chemos? Is she on chemo or radiation? I guess I would have to ask a lot of questions
I think
with
for
that one.
her,
So
she has said that her taste has changed once she got put on the Ibrance.
yeah. Oh yeah, she's on Ibrance. Yep. That the taste changes, that's something that we I could have to talk to her. Like the taste change is what we do with that. Sometimes we have to we rinse our mouth out with a baking soda salt solution before mealtime, and that will kind of stimulate other taste buds or clean out the palate. So because and with Ibrance, things will be the acuity of either things that taste super sweet or super salty, or things taste more metally. So it it all depends on which direction she's going.
Okay.
I would ask her if she could put like peanut butter on that chocolate. I mean, I would just kind of
Yeah.
just try to work with that. You can make protein shakes with chocolate. I would be okay with that. Some good protein powders out there. And then, there are yogurts out there that are chocolate flavored. We generally don't go that direction, but if that can get other things in, it's better to have something than nothing at all, especially during that time. So it's a tough one. That's really tough.
Yeah. Oh,
She
well,
needs the calories and protein. So I would focus on trying to get, like Ensure and Live, ENLIVE has a chocolate drink, and there's 350 calories, and protein has all the vitamins in it, and it's chocolate. And if she wanted to add more chocolate to it to get more chocolatey, I'm okay with that.
okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
We do have 2 questions here.
Okay.
It says, I am 4.5 years removed from surgery, chemo, and radiation. Any nutritional suggestions for avoiding fatigue?
You're still fatigued. Okay. So I would follow all of these little guidelines by watching the added sugar, watching caffeine. I don't know, if you're consuming any of that. I would try to fuel more frequently. First, I'd make sure if your iron stores are good, if your thyroid is good, all this stuff, make sure all those labs are all good and great. And then I would start going in on the diet, and I would look at those small mini meals and making sure that we have the carbs, proteins, and fat with each of those meals. And then I would making sure, are you anemic? Like, just make sure those labs come out okay. And then, yeah, I would follow that. I would watch the caffeine. I would watch the added sugar. And I would try, with that fatigue, if it's the same type of fatigue that you underwent when you had the treatment, or is this a different type of fatigue? These are my questions. I mean, if she wants to answer those for me, I can maybe be more direct or more specific.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question here. Is there any better time of the day to take calcium so it doesn't get canceled by iron? Is it better in the morning? I was taking it after lunch to have food in my stomach because it's such a big pill, but wonder if that is being effective.
Okay. You're right. Let me get, where's what's someone call? Um, so to answer that, yeah, calcium can be taken. It depends on how much you're taking in. General, females our age, I'm just going to say we're adults here. So about 1,200, about 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of calcium is what's needed in a day. Calcium should be split up into two. We shouldn't take all 1,000, and we shouldn't take all 1,200 at one time, because that our body can't absorb that much at one time. So calcium supplements generally will come in two, like 600 or 500 milligrams. So split that up. I would take it, it depends, and you can look at what type of calcium that you have, because certain calciums are better with a meal and certain are with outside of that meal. So we have calcium citrate and calcium carbonate, and citrate, I believe, is in between, and calcium carbonate is with a meal. So just check and see which one that you're taking. And then I would, if it's such a big pill, I mean, it all depends on what kind you're taking, because you can take it between. And I would just make sure that if you're taking a multivitamin, not just to make sure if the multivitamin has iron in it, that don't take the multi and the calcium at the same time. So it might be best, if we're doing it that way, to take your multi in the morning, your calcium at lunch, and then maybe another calcium in the evening, depending on how much calcium that you're needing. Sometimes people will just do one calcium tablet because they take in some calcium during the day, but they're not getting the whole 1,200 or 1,200 or the 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams that they need. So whatever's best for you, just make sure that you can take it with your meal or take it after your meal, depending on which one you have. That makes sense.
All right, thank you. And I forgot I was not on mute a second ago, and Jones was kind of crying. Sorry.
No, I can't hear him.
Okay.
That's okay. I had to run downstairs. I mean, I'm so sorry for that. I had this strange feeling that was going to happen, didn't I?
We're a mess today.
Ah,
All right, so that was our, including mine, 3 questions. Um, Again, if we have
we
a
have one.
here we go. Should you take calcium with vitamin D?
Yes, very good question. Yes, you should. The vitamin D will help the body absorb the calcium. Excellent question. And there are a lot of supplements out there that will have a little bit of calcium, will have the calcium and a little bit of vitamin D in there. Um, they usually have about maybe 400 IUs of vitamin D. You know, we haven't changed our RDIs for the vitamin D as of yet, and you know, we say that 800 IUs is the recommended daily intake, but what we're finding is that we need more than that because we are very conscious of using sunscreen and everything, and we're not getting enough vitamin D. So, excellent question. Yes, you should take those together. And if you want to take a vitamin D separately, you can do that. I would strongly encourage everyone to get their vitamin D levels checked so we know where we are. A healthy vitamin D should be anywhere from like 32 to 100. That's the score that they give you with your labs. So you can, from that, you should try to be in the midpoint of that. That's what the research is showing. So, you know, somewhere around 60, 70 would be good. But a lot of people are very deficient in vitamin D and don't even know it. And there's a lot of secondary or comorbidities that come with that they're discovering. And cancer is one of them. Oh, wait, hold on one second. Hold on.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And we want to thank Lisa. I know she stepped away, but want to thank Lisa for her time today. If anyone does have more questions, feel free to type them in the box right now while we're kind of wrapping things up. Or you can always email us at staff@myturningpoint.org. Thank you guys again so much for being here. Sandy! Good to see you, Sandy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry I had to leave. I hope that's very.
Oh, wait, we have another question.
Okay, okay.
Kim said, I have heard vitamin K is important. Is that true?
Yes, vitamin K is another one that you can have a little. So vitamin K will help you absorb vitamin D. It's like, but vitamin K, you don't necessarily just start supplementing with a vitamin K, because vitamin K will help. You know, vitamin K is out there to help with blood clotting. So you have to be careful with that. But there are some supplements now that are like with vitamin D and vitamin K, which are safe. But just don't buy I don't even know if there's a vitamin K supplement out there. But yes, vitamin K is, I mean, it is important. Yes, for blood clotting. Good question. And they generally have that in a little bit of some of the multivitamins that we take in. That was a good question, Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
You're welcome, Sandy, though I'm sorry I had to leave.
Oh, all right. So again, guys, this has been recorded and we're still recording right now. So it will be posted on our Facebook, on our YouTube page. If you want to go back, look at anything that you maybe have missed. Thank you again, Lisa, so much for your time.
Guys.
Always informative, and we appreciate you so very much. Thank you, everybody who attended. And
Thanks for your patience.
Yes, you're fine. Thank you again, guys, and I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you back at our next event.
Awesome.
Yeah, so be
all right
for the newsletter.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.